This two-part video is going to get us set up for doing our first orthographic projection in AutoCAD Web. Now, you've already looked at some of the OSNAP, Ortho, and Polar tools. So the first thing we want to do is make sure those are set for what we want. So if you look at those settings, please make sure they're set to endpoint, midpoint, intersection, center, and tangent. We also want to make sure our polar setting is set to 45 degrees. And we're also going to double click on our text down here and change it so it suits our new drawing. It should say title block when you first open your title block. And again, we are doing this inside our title block drawing. But if you click on your text and then click again, you can change that to what it's going to represent. So this drawing is going to be an orthographic drawing of block number 2. Now we're going to add one more layer, pardon the pun, to the complexity of this drawing by creating layers. And layers is a way to control different aspects of your drawing. For example, if I was creating a house plan in CAD, I would create one layer for all of the walls and the framing. I would then create another layer for the plumbing and a different layer for the electrical. And then you have the ability to turn on and off these layers and look at only that component of the drawing. But it also allows you to control the type of line you're going to use. You can use dotted lines, different colors for different components of your drawing. So the first title block that we have done was done in the default layer, and that's simply labeled 0. So we are now going to create, from our layer tab, a new layer. We are going to call this object. And that object layer now, we can go back to our properties and we can control how that layer behaves. So I'm going to pull down and choose object, and I want the color to be white. So I'm going to leave that as white. I want the line type to be continuous, and I'm going to leave the scale for the line type at 1. So I'm happy with that layer. I'm going to go back to my layer command and add another layer. And this other new layer is going to be my projection line. So I'm going to call that projection and hit enter. I will go back to my properties, and now I want to control the way the projection layer is going to look. So I want to leave everything the same, except I'm going to change my color to red. I'm going to have my projection lines being red. So I'm going to go back to my layer command one more time, and I'm going to add one more layer, and I'm going to call this one hidden, because there's going to be some hidden lines in this sample drawing. I'll go back to my projection tab, select my hidden layer, and this time I want to change my line type to a dotted line. So in AutoCAD, that's going to be a dashed line, and I need to change the scale of it. So I'm going to change the scale of it to 10. That just makes the dashes a little bit bigger and a little bit easier to see. All right, so now I have my layers set. So I can pick and choose my layers from my drop-down layer control right here. So when I want to draw my object, I make sure I go to my object layer and I go ahead and draw my object, and it will be visible with the line qualities that we have selected. All right, so time to get started. Now again, we're not using a scale, so we're not going to measure anything. So I'm going to choose a rectangle, and I'm going to simply drag out. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer, I think. My object layer. Oh, I must have set that by mistake. Let's go back to white. And we'll set that back to continuous. And we'll leave that scale at 1. Let me go back quickly here and double check my projection layer. Yeah, I simply changed the wrong one. So I'm going back to red. There we go. All right. So if I now go back to my object layer, I'm going to erase what I did there by mistake. So back to my object layer, and it's still back to red. All right, back to white. Okay. So I'm going to draw my box for my front view. Then I'm going to jump right away to my projection layer. And switch that one back to red because I messed that one up at the start. And I'm going to draw now my projection lines, bringing this straight up. So again, there's going to be a red line, and you'll notice that my polar and my O-snap are on, so I'm going to draw my first red line right there that came straight up, and I will draw my second snapping to the end point, straight up. There we go. So I've got the first part of my object, and I have my projection lines coming up. So I'm going to go back now to my object layer. Switch my line type back to white. And I'm going to draw another box right here. And this box is going to be used to cut out that shape at the top. And I'm going to draw another box down here. And this is also going to cut out the shape at the bottom. So this isn't exactly what I want, but I am going to use what's called the trim tool now. So if I go to modify and select trim, I can just simply hit return or enter on my keyboard, and I can now click at the pieces that I want to disappear. So I want all those pieces to disappear. And I'll do the same down here. And there I have my front view. I'm going to now jump back to my projection layer. My colors aren't switching with me here, unfortunately, so I'll go back to red. And I'm going to go back to draw, take my line again, and I'm going to draw some lines up now for these features that I've added. So I'm going to have to do this 4 times from the 4 features that have now become visible. And remember, to end each line, I'm hitting escape or return. Either one of those will work. I didn't finish that one. Okay, click to end your line and then hit escape. Click to end my line and hit escape. Okay, so there's my front view. My projection line's going up to my top view. So I'm going to go back to my object line now, switch my line type back to white, and I'm going to draw a box. So that box is going to be right here. Now that happens to fall in the midpoint of that line. That's great. I'll just snap that right there. And now what I need to do is draw these hidden lines that come up here. So I'm going to go to my hidden layer. And again, reset this to dashed and scale to 10. So now when I draw my lines on here, there's my object snap coming into play. So there's intersection. And you'll see now those are showing up as dashed lines. That's exactly what I want. Oh, wait a minute, let me undo that, because those are not going to be dashed lines. Those are going to be solid lines. Silly me. This part of the object here, when you're looking down to a top view, that is clearly visible. So those lines are going to be part of the object. I'll go back to my object layer, and my line format is not changing with me, so just be wary of that. I've come across a few little quirks in this application. This seems to be one of them. So I'm going to go back to my line type. And this line is now going to be on my object layer, and it will be solid. And same with this one right here when I follow it up. There we go. Escape ends that. And then these two that are going to be invisible from my top view are going to become hidden lines. So we'll go back to hidden and switch that line type to dashed. Switch my scale to 10. And then draw those lines in there. Okay, so there's my top view finished. So I'm going to add a few more projection lines and draw my 45-degree line in. So I'm going to go back to my projection, switch my color once that switches to red, and now making sure my polar is turned on, I'm going to draw my 45-degree line. It doesn't matter where you draw it from. If I draw it right here, it just means my right side view is going to be right beside my bottom view. If I draw it over here, I'm going to have a little bit of space. Okay, that came up as a dashed line, so this is a little bit frustrating, but we'll go back to continuous, scale 1, and we'll go back to our line, and again, let's draw our projection line. There's my 45-degree line. There it is. It snaps to it. And now I'll draw a few more lines from these features. Again, snap, straight over. And I'm going to go beyond the line here. It doesn't matter if you go right to the line or go beyond it. Neither one is particularly more correct than the other. As long as I cross that 45-degree line with my projection lines, I should be okay. And I'll do the same down here with a couple more projection lines. I need to bring 4 across from here. 1. 2. 3. And 4. And this will end our projection lines for this drawing. Sorry, that won't end the projection lines. We have a couple more just to drop. And I'm going to drop a projection line from the point where these two lines intersect. And there's another great example of how our intersection tool comes into play. So I'm going to drop that straight down, making sure that it is perfectly straight. And I'll drop one more from here. There we go, snapping to straight. Okay, so please make sure that this is, the top of this will be your last projection line on the right. And the bottom of this will be the first projection line on the right. And if you have any other features in between here, which you will see in object number 3 and possibly 4, and 4, yes, they're going to fall somewhere in between these lines. So please pay attention to where these stop. So I'm now going to jump back to finish this up. I'm going to jump back to my object. Change my line color back to white. And I'm going to draw my right side view, snapping from there down to there. And then I'm going to just jump back, and I have 2 more lines to do, and those are my hidden lines. Take this back to dash. Size 10. And again, you have to be pretty deliberate and patient with this software. Being online, it's a little bit slow. And I'm going to draw now 2 lines across here representing this feature that we cannot see from the right side view. Looking at this object from the right, we can't see these 2 cuts, but we know they're still there, so they are represented by dotted lines. Okay, so there we go. Finished drawing. We have 3 different layers. We have accurate lines representing our object. We have perfectly accurate lines representing our projection lines. Information is transferred from one to the other in each view. And we have our accurate 45-degree line that allows us to project this dimension of depth over to our right side. Okay, I hope that goes well. I would like you to reproduce drawing number 2. You can follow the instructions as you saw in this video. Then you're going to reproduce drawings either number 3 or 4 without any instruction from me. And they should all be done inside your title block. So now that I'm finished this drawing, I am going to click Save As. I'm going to save this as orthographic 2 and save. And that then will show up in my drawing list. All right, and at that point in time, take a screenshot of it and drop it into your submit slideshow. Okay, so that'll be it for today. You have to create a title block, and you have to create this drawing, orthographic number 2, and then you're going to do one more, either orthographic 3 or orthographic 4. And again, I'll post pictures of what the finished drawings should look like, so you will know exactly where you're heading with your drawings. Okay, good luck.